Hello, welcome to Brian360 and welcome to my second anti-scam video. My first video was on the Apple security alert scam, which is a scam that lasts in the matter of a few hours. The romance scams that I'll be talking about today can last weeks, months, or sometimes even years. The purpose of this video, like the previous one, is to educate and inform so that you and your loved ones don't become victims to these scams. I'll put some links in the description that I used to learn about this topic, and this includes YouTube videos, websites, and a podcast. Now, if you learn nothing else from this video, please remember these next 2 points that I'm about to make. The first is that if you are a victim of a scam or a family member, a loved one, know that you are not alone. Thousands of people every year fall victim to scammers, and they lose billions of dollars. This is a huge international problem that is likely only going to get worse with the increase of artificial intelligence images, audio, and video. At this point, I should mention that every single image in this video was generated by AI. None of these people exists. I should point out as well that there will be some disturbing images later on in this video, and I will remind you at that point that these people do not exist as well. Becoming a victim of a romance scam can be an incredibly embarrassing and alienating experience. In addition to the community of other people who have fallen for these, know that you are not alone with respect to your family and friends as well. These scams can have terrible impacts on finances, relationships, families, and lives, but know that you are not alone. The second very important point that I want you to remember is that they, the scammers, are not alone either, often working in teams with individual specialized roles. They have training, they have manuals, they have scripts that they follow, all for the point of pushing those psychological buttons to make you fall in love and manipulate you so that you ultimately send them money. And lastly, I hate to legitimize what they do by calling them professionals, but that is what they are. And you are an amateur. You do not deal with these people on an everyday basis, whereas they scam people every day, quite often for years. They are extremely good and successful at what they do. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it. And know that anyone can become a victim. Even if you are educated and informed, you can still fall victim to these scammers. Now, I hate awkward acronyms, but I think in this case it works out to demonstrate the 4 main features of a romance scam. The first part of a romance scam is seduction. And I think that is the component of a romance scam that makes it so cruel. It's one thing to steal a person's money, but to trick them into believing that they're in love with someone who doesn't exist, and then ultimately to betray them, to steal their money, is exceptionally cruel. Deep down, I think we all want to be loved, and whether you want a fairy tale romance like this one, or someone to grow old with, or both, we all have to start somewhere. And in today's age of technology, dating websites and apps make it much easier to meet that special person. Unfortunately, that is perfect hunting ground for scammers. The seduction usually begins with a message from the other person sent through the app or website. They might say, "Hey, I saw your profile and I live in the same general area as you," and you start chatting back and forth, sending short messages. At this point, there might be a request from the other person to move your chats outside of the website or app where you first met. Moving to something like WhatsApp or Snapchat leaves less of an electronic trail. You start opening up and sharing information about yourself with the other person, and you think you are getting legitimate information from them. However, at this point, they are usually running off of a script, and the point is to probe you with certain questions to see whether or not you are worth their time. Questions about your job, maybe whether or not you have children, maybe the kind of car you drive, where you live, all things that let them know whether or not you have money. If you pass their financial threshold, you will continue to receive lovey-dovey messages from your suitor. Now, there are two very interesting points that I learned watching YouTube videos about this. The first is that there are changes that occur in the brain when you are falling in love. There are certain portions of the brain that are more active, and there are also some portions of the brain that are less active. Unfortunately, the parts of the brain that are less active are the areas responsible for logic and decision making. Now, I think this ties in with evolutionary biology and the whole idea of procreation, and if your species is going to continue, well, you have to have babies. Anyway, getting back to the logic part in decision making, if your logic and decision making processes are impaired, you might make some very bad choices. The second point that I learned about the brain has to do with the communication from the scammers. Because they often work in teams around the clock, they'll be sending you messages during the day, they'll be sending you messages during the night while you're trying to sleep. So at 3 a.m., you might get a text message that you feel compelled to reply to. Anyone who has had children and that baby phase and not sleeping knows what an impact that has on your life and on your decision making. So, coupled with the impaired part of your brain due to being in love and the lack of sleep, these guys are setting you up to make some very bad choices. This now brings us to the second component of a romance scam, which is communication. This is where a lot of the red flags for the scam start to show. The relationship usually starts off with those text-based messages through an app or a website, and it's natural to want to progress, to actually speak with the person, maybe see some photos of them, or with today's technology, have a video call. It's not that difficult. Let's start with the photos. Everyone has a cell phone these days, so everyone has a camera. Your online love interest should have lots of pictures of himself or herself, and they do. Maybe the photo is of the person at their job, or their most recent beach vacation. Perhaps they want to demonstrate their hobbies or interests with other photos. Well, don't worry, because there will be a mountain of photos that the person has, because they are all stolen photos. Photos taken from Facebook, Instagram, or any other social media site or website can be used by a scammer to portray this exciting, wonderful life, and they want you to be part of it. I highly recommend doing a reverse photo search at this point. You can take their photo and search it online, and it will show you if that photo has originated from any other website, including social media, and there are a lot of anti-scam websites that will show you photos that are in common use. Now, a scammer is going to want to keep the communication in a text-based format for as long as possible. The reason being that beautiful 21-year-old woman you think you're speaking with in Toronto or Los Angeles is actually a 37-year-old man in Ghana, Nigeria, or Cambodia, which are some of the hot spots for romance scams. Let's say you have now progressed to the point where you want to have a voice conversation, or even better, a video call. The scammer reluctantly agrees, maybe, and when you agree to a certain time, well, there's something that happens. Either there's been an emergency and they're not available, or there's something wrong with their Wi-Fi, or their phone is broken, or some issue that is going to prevent that scheduled voice or video chat. Life is complicated, though. Things can happen, so you agree to schedule another voice or video chat, and that doesn't work out either. Neither does the next time, and so on and so on. Now, there are some instances where there is someone who will pose as the scammer, whether it is a voice call or even a video call. Be prepared for some more technical difficulties. I have seen videos on YouTube where someone has taken a video, perhaps from Instagram, and then they have done some terrible editing and put in an audio track over it. And of course, the voice doesn't match the mouth, and then that gets explained away as technical difficulties, bad Wi-Fi signal, maybe because they're sending the message across the ocean, whatever. There's always going to be something that makes the quality of that video call or even voice conversation not realistic, and there's something wrong. One scammer I did see on YouTube went so far as to hire a beautiful young woman to pose as the love interest as part of the scam. She was on a real-time call with the victim. However, of course, the audio didn't work so well, so they couldn't have a great conversation, but she was there for the video to convince the man of her actual existence. Lastly, if the communications with your supposed loved ones seem to be forced or strange or just not right, then that's probably something you should pay attention to. It's definitely not proof that you're dealing with a scammer, but it is a very large red flag. The third common element of a romance scam is the person's availability. That is, their availability to meet you face to face in person. They will be available all the time on your phone or your computer, but they're just not available in person, and there will always be a reason that they are not available. You have seen this photo before, and that is not a mistake. The reason being is that the person's job is one of the most common excuses as to why they are not available to meet you in person. Being in the military is probably the most perfect job for a scammer backstory. It's an honorable profession, and you just can't simply leave your job for the weekend and come back home for a quick visit. This woman is a doctor at a United Nations medical clinic in a third world country, and she is unable to come home for the weekend as well. This gentleman works on an oil rig in the middle of the Atlantic. He loves you and would love to take a helicopter to come and visit you, but he's really busy, so he can't, unfortunately. And this guy is a very important businessman who travels the world and he goes wherever he is needed, and unfortunately, that's not where you are at the moment. Things are looking up. The love of your life is coming to visit you in a few days. And then this happens. For whatever reason, maybe it's mechanical failure, maybe it's bad weather, but the plane cannot make it. Or maybe the day before, your loved one was in an accident and is now in hospital. Or, sadly, perhaps there was a death in the family. Now, these things do occur, but when they happen over and over again, and the person is not available to come and see you, hopefully that is a big red flag for you. Now we get to the final component and the reason for a romance scam, which is money. To this point, the scammer has seduced you over a period of weeks, months, maybe years. Their frequent romantic communications have become a part of your daily life now, and you are in love. They have limited their communications to text-based messages without even a phone call or a video call. They have used stolen pictures to build a backstory, showing their overseas job and hobbies. This has limited their availability, so you have never been able to meet face to face. And then comes the request for money. It's a common psychological ploy that if you want a large favor from someone, it's best to start off by asking for a small favor. And they play on your emotions. Remember, these are well-trained individuals who have done this many times before. They know the right pressure points, and they will do anything that they can to make sure you comply. Perhaps the first request is for a few $100s. That will be followed by a second request, maybe 1,000 or a few thousand. And when it's all said and done, over time, you have lost tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even a few $1,000,000. The request for money usually comes in one of two options. The first is an urgent, time-sensitive need for money. The second is a financial investment scheme that is guaranteed to work and provide a comfortable financial future for the two of you as you live the rest of your lives together. We'll start with the emergency request for money. This poor woman, the doctor working for United Nations, in a third world country has had her passport and her identity stolen. As a result, her bank account has been frozen and she has no access to money unless you send her some so she has enough money to buy food. Of course, the problems don't resolve quickly. She has to hire a lawyer, and that's going to cost even more money. So if you could please send a few $1,000s this time, that would be great. She also needs a bit more money for a new passport for when she comes to see you in a few weeks, but she promises she will pay you back when she sees you. This gentleman, who is on an oil rig in the middle of the Atlantic, has a problem. He has to get some supplies from the nearest port to come out to the oil rig. Unfortunately, due to some not so great Wi-Fi on the oil rig, he is unable to access his bank account and pay for the new supplies. Would you be able to help him out with a few $1,000s? And then maybe a lot more later? This guy, while vacationing in Paris, learned of the death of his rich old uncle. And his uncle wanted to leave his favorite nephew a big sum of gold. Unfortunately, that gold is in another country, and to get that gold to Canada, there are a lot of fees for shipping, importing, duties, taxes, whatever, and they need their money within 48 hours or the gold won't make it. So would you be able to give him a few $1,000s in the meantime? Now, if you recall this poor guy, he was the one who missed his flight to come visit you because he got into a car accident. So he does need a few $100s for the medical bills. Unfortunately, it's a little more complicated, so now it's a few thousand. And to make things even worse, he hit someone on a motorcycle, and that person is now going to be suing him, and he is in desperate need for some money. He loves you. You love him. Could you help him out, please? While all of these scenarios seem a little outlandish, they have all been used, maybe with slight variations, to steal huge sums of money from the victims. The second common way scammers take money from their victims is by a get-rich-quick investment scheme. At this point, the scammer has earned the trust and love of the victim and suggests that, well, maybe they can earn a little bit of money together. The scammer claims that recently he has made a pretty good amount of money very quickly by using an online investment tool that a friend of his has told him about. He wants to share that knowledge with you because, well, he loves you and wants you to benefit. He doesn't want you to tell friends and family because if there are too many people involved, that will dilute the power of this scheme and it will not be as effective. He recommends putting in a small amount of money, maybe $500, and within a day or two, it's now $600. You can watch your investment grow in real time because he has provided you with the website that shows you your investment and how much it's going up. The website looks legitimate, and when you are allowed to withdraw your money, well, that's kind of the clincher. You think you have invested money in a real internet investment brokerage, and you are getting money out of it. So maybe you should invest a little bit more and make even more money. As you watch your investment grow and grow, the scammer encourages you to invest more and more. Sometimes you have to borrow money from family or friends, but you'll quickly be able to pay it back because of how successful this is. And you'll be able to throw a little bit of extra money their way too. Think how much money you can make if you put in a really large amount. So you mortgage your home. So things go well for a while, and then you decide you want to pull some money out. At that point, you are told by the fake investment site that there is a penalty for doing so. And if you want to get your money out, maybe you need to put a little bit more money in to pay the fees, and then you'll be able to withdraw whatever you have made. At this point, if you have no more money to put in, your account is frozen, your account is closed, your money is gone. In reality, it was gone the second you transferred it. Whether it is an investment scam or an emergency scam, there comes an endpoint. Either the money has run out, or the person has come to the realization that the relationship they thought they had is fake and only existed to steal their money. The results can be tragic. when someone realizes their life savings have been given away to a scammer. They have nothing to go back to. Maybe they are retired and don't have a job to go back to and start over again. Sadly, many people have ended their lives because of these scams. Many people suffer in silence because they are embarrassed about what has happened. They feel guilty and feel that no one will understand what they went through. And some of the stories that I gave you are ones that I've seen on YouTube or read about. They are legitimate ones that have happened. And it seems unbelievable that anyone would fall for something like that. But again, go back to that message. You are not alone. Sadly, the romance scam sometimes does not end there. When the person is still trying to pick up the pieces of their lives, they might be contacted by someone claiming to be a police officer, someone doing an investigation internationally, and the scam victim's name has come up as part of their investigation. They might tell the victim that because they have given money to the scammer, they are now part of the investigation and could be held criminally responsible as well. Or they could be told that as part of the investigation, the police are trying to recover their money. However, in both situations, there is always a request for more money from the victim for whatever reason, to assist in the investigation, to make things go smoothly. They want more money from the victim. If you are ever in this situation and you haven't reached out to the police already, now is a good time to do that. No police agency is going to ask you for money to assist in their investigation. The last chapter in this sad tale is about the scammers themselves. It's easy to hate these people, knowing what they do, knowing how they destroy lives, and some of them seem to do it without a care, and probably take a perverse pleasure in doing that. It's important to know that most scammers do not look like this person in the picture. Most scammers come from someplace that looks like this. Just a reminder that all of the pictures in this video are generated by AI. These people do not exist, but they definitely represent people who do. I have already mentioned Nigeria, Ghana, and Cambodia as some of the hot spots for romance scams around the world. Sadly, many scammers are doing it out of necessity. There are no other job options available, and scamming someone halfway across the world seems like a victimless crime, especially when you are just trying to feed your family. As a father of two, I can understand that motivation. On the opposite end are the people who run romance scams for profit, so that they can have expensive sports cars, go on wonderful vacations, and lead lavish lifestyles. Organized crime is heavily involved in romance scams in some parts of the world, and they have victims of their own who are much closer. It is possible that the scammers you are dealing with are victims themselves. With the promise of a job opportunity in another country, a person emigrates, and when they arrive in that new country, they find that the job does not exist. They have been lured there by organized crime and are effectively turned into slaves running scams. Their passport might be taken, they have no money to get back to their home country, and unless they produce victims through these romance scams, they can be starved, beaten, or even killed. Scams are an enormous international problem, whether it is a romance scam or any other of the list of many scams that are available. So what can you do to help prevent scams like this from occurring? Well, if you've made it this far in this video, thank you very much. That's one way, because you are learning about scams and hopefully you will pass this information on to your loved ones. With fewer and fewer victims, perhaps these scams will become less lucrative and people will move on to other means of supporting themselves. I realize that sounds great from a guy living in Canada making this video in the comfort of his house. What do you say to the father in Ghana who now cannot scam someone and feed his family? If I knew the answer to that, life would be amazing. Some things you can do. You can donate. You can support a child in another country. You can send one-time donations or have perpetual donations. That might help alleviate some of the problem. A quick search of international aid agencies will give you a long list of organizations that are more than happy to take your donations and put your money to good use around the world. Put pressure on politicians. Do not invest in organizations that exploit poorer countries for their natural resources. It's never been easier to learn about the problems around the world thanks to the internet, so take a look and find out how you can help. Okay, I went off on a bit of a tangent there. Let's bring it back to the scams. Thank you again for watching this video, and please share it or share the information with your loved ones. There are lots of other videos to watch on YouTube about scams, websites, podcasts. I'll put links to all of those that I referred to in the description below. And if you personally have been a victim of a scam, and if you feel comfortable with it, please share that information so that other people can learn about your experiences. That's how I learned about romance scams on YouTube and looking up articles online and listening to a podcast. Know that you are not alone. That message still stands 26 minutes into this video. Thank you again for watching, and take care.